All right, everyone, with the announcement of the Mueller investigation having concluded and the whole Russian collusion fiasco collapsing, President Donald Trump has just won re-election. That is what we will be talking about on today's video. First, a huge shout out to all of our first-time viewers. A very, very warm welcome to each and every one of you. I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of really awesome conservative trends. So if you will, please smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel. Also, for everyone, we have some wonderful new merchandise on our merchandise store at the link below. If you click on there, check out some of these great new t-shirts and mugs that you'll really love. All the while, you'll help support this channel. All right, so I'm sure you're all familiar by now that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has delivered his official report of his investigation into possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russian officials during the 2016 primary election. Though the report has not been made public by the Attorney General William Barr, it is being widely reported that the report recommends no new indictments, which is basically admission that they found nothing zippo nada when it comes to the Russian collusion. And of course, we already knew that. But this is the kabuki theater that the swamp and its amplifying media likes to play, all the while raking in hundreds of millions of dollars in their own personal wealth. The White House is calling this a grand slam, and even CNN, if you can believe it, even CNN is coming out saying that this is a total and complete victory for President Trump. In fact, so I'm going to have to keep myself together here. The mainstream media looked like it was election night back in 2016 all over again. They were shell-shocked when they found out that Mueller had handed over his final report without any more indictments coming. The saliva-dripping Chris Matthews over at MSNBC was furious. Rachel Maddow started crying. I mean, this is just like election night. It would be so preposterous if it weren't so funny. I mean, they all should be fired for being frauds, for being these left-wing activist journalists, left-wing activists posing as journalists, but they're just too funny. Don't fire them. They're better than any comedian out there. And of course, the liberal corporatist globalist media ought to be crying. They ought to be having their snowflake meltdown. And that's because they know that this whole Mueller investigation, Russian collusion fiasco has just crashed and burned, which means only one thing, and that is that President Trump has just won re-election. And they know it. And that's why they're so upset. Make no mistake, they know it. They know that President Trump, as of the last 12 hours, has just basically become a two-term president. I mean, this goes way beyond simply the power of the incumbency for him, right? Most presidents in our history, I don't know if you know this, but a super majority of presidents served 2 terms. Only 2 presidents since 1960 have been voted out of office, Jimmy Carter and Bush Sr., and those were during extremely harsh economic downturns, stagflation in the late 70s, and of course, a recession in 92. We're not seeing anything even remotely like that in the economic forecast. No, the one thing that stood in Trump's way were all the possible indictments coming from the Mueller investigation that would have effectively crippled his administration and become an albatross around his neck that both the media and the Democrats, which of course are the same thing, but they would have exploited 24/7. That was the one thing that stood in Trump's way, and now that is gone. It's gone. But to make matters even worse, with Mueller now admitting that there was no Russian collusion, that the entire Russian collusion narrative was a mythology concocted originally by the Clinton campaign and then used as a cover by the Democratic media to try to undermine the legitimacy of Donald Trump's presidency. With all that, the media have destroyed whatever shreds of credibility that they still had left. The reason why Rachel Maddow was crying and Chris Matthews spitting more than he usually does is because they realized that any semblance that they had of factual mediators of information is gone. It's dead. It's already being openly talked about, by the way. What's going to be so interesting in all this is watching all the knives come out among the mainstream media and watching them stab each other in the back. I wouldn't be surprised if you had MSNBC starting to come out and saying, I think it was CNN who first reported this whole Russia collusion thing and started spreading it with their connections with the deep state. I think it's all CNN's fault, and the other way around, of course. It does appear that a day of reckoning is coming in all this. Remember, the whole Russian narrative predates the Mueller probe. It all stems from the Clinton-concocted, Clinton-financed Steele dossier that pushed the notion that the then Republican candidate Donald Trump was a Russian agent. And so all we've been getting for the past 3 years from the Russian collusion-obsessed media is all this hysteria about Trump and treason. The fact that there's no more indictments and that all the indictments that have thus far been issued have nothing, not one whit to do with Russia, means that the media has for 3 straight years been lying to us. They've been lying. Remember the nothing burger comment? Right? Remember the venerable Van Jones, who infamously referred to the Trump victory on election night as a white lash? Remember that? James O'Keefe of Project Veritas got him admitting that the whole Russian-Trump collusion story was a big nothing burger. And this was months ago. He went on to assert there's nothing there, right? A big nothing burger. And then they went on to film a CNN producer admitting that the whole Trump-Russia collusion story was just being pushed for ratings, which CNN barely has. They need all the ratings they can get. It was all a lie, a big fat nothing burger lie, and now a day of reckoning is coming. I think the Washington Free Beacon editor-in-chief, Matthew Continetti, I think he said it best. The Mueller report could be the greatest anticlimax in American history. And that's because the entire investigation and the hundreds of millions of dollars of taxpayer money spent could be for nothing because it was an investigation without a crime. Well, I think that's only partly right. I certainly think it could be the greatest anticlimax in American history, but it wasn't an investigation without a crime. No, you see, the crime was the investigation. The crime was the corporatist globalist media and their constant nonstop peddling of this fictitious myth that sought only ratings on the one hand and sought to cover their pathetically partisan asses on the other, since they were so ridiculously embarrassed by how wrong they were with their mythical coverage of the 2016 presidential campaign. It's the incessant lying to the American people and to the rest of the world that's the real crime here. And the irony of it all is that for all practical purposes, it all just but guaranteed President Trump's re-election. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Click on either our Patreon subscribes to our PayPal links below. Become a supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.